Alrighty everyone, so a lot of fans have been very much excited for what's about to be unveiled at Star Wars Celebration this year, as well as D23 that's going to unveil more additional series for the roadmap of the franchise by John, George, and Dave as well. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now that brings us to one of the biggest scenarios about what's going on behind the scenes over at Disney, and how it does indeed involve a lot to do with the Mandoverse and how it's going to combine itself with the past Star Wars Legends material coming back to life and really becoming a part of the Disney canon. Now the thing about this is that we all know that Bob Chapek was fired months ago and replaced by Bob Iger. And since then, a lot of fans have been a little on edge about Bob Iger really taking control over Star Wars again, and especially Marvel. However, we know that Bob Iger is in full desperation mode and damage control mode to really kind of get the ball rolling on both franchises in a more successful route. Now, looking at everything here, alright, we know that Chapek, the fired Disney CEO, has been a little bit more talkative and direct to the public as of late, and really revealing more and more about certain situations that happen behind the scenes over at Disney, and specifically over at Lucasfilm as well. Now, with that being all said and done, we know that Bob Chapek and Bob Iger have this ongoing grudge. It was a very awkward transition for them both, and the second awkward transition because this already happened before in the past when Bob Chapek took over Bob Iger. Now, of course, bringing that forward to where we stand today, ever since Bob Chapek was fired by the Disney board and replaced with Bob Iger, fans have remained skeptical about Iger's control over Disney. However, recently Bob Chapek was able to talk more and reveal more about Gina Carano and the firing of her back in 2021, and revealed new truths about her. Bob Chapek stated the following: "When I was running Disney and the slate of Star Wars projects at the time, one thing that always was brought up to me from Kathleen Kennedy was her demands to cut off Miss Carano from future installments in the franchise. I kept on getting reports that she was causing trouble on the set of The Mandalorian, which later ended up being false, and that there was this unhealthy, toxic environment on the set of the second season where crew and cast members were trying to find any reason to get her laid off." So let me just stop here for a second. Now, this matches directly with what Gina Carano unveiled in the past interviews that she was giving out, that there were a lot of people, especially crew members, that were very loyal to Kathleen Kennedy, and even some of the cast, that were trying to find any petty reason to get Gina Carano fired. Any kind of little reason here and there that could make her more unlikable, and to get her pretty much, wrongfully laid off for no reason at all. Bob Chapek confirming all of this, that this was, yes indeed, happening behind the scenes on the Mando Season 2 set. In fact, it's one of the main reasons as to why there was a little bit of a distance between Bob Chapek and Kathleen Kennedy for a while, because Kathy was causing so much trouble between Gina and the cast and the crew, and how it was very hard for Bob Chapek on who to believe. And he was really stuck in this really problematic situation where it was everybody else's word against other people's. And for Bob Chapek, who was more isolated, could not really pinpoint who was telling the truth and who was not telling the truth. So that brings us to where everything is happening today, is that we know that John and Dave have a full-fledged plan to get Gina back in Mando Season 4. Bob Iger supports it, the Disney board supports it. Kathleen Kennedy, however, is trying to put an end to all of that and make that stop. And it's not a surprise, really. I mean, when you really think about it, it's not all that big of a surprise. So, Bob Chapek, I think that where he stood at the time, it was very hard for him to decide on who was telling the truth, right? Because let's put ourselves in his shoes. He's not really on the set physically. He's not really there all the time. He's just in an office somewhere running the show. And when you have people like Kathy and John and Dave coming forward about what's going on, it's very hard for him to really kind of pinpoint what's really happening behind the scenes. We all know that the truth was Lucasfilm employees at the time were really kind of just treating Gina so terribly. And Chapek is now confirming that that was the true story happening behind closed doors. Moving on. He goes on to elaborate. This was brought to my attention several times by John and Dave, and that Gina was treated unfairly. We had John and Dave trying to settle out this heated environment behind the scenes between Gina and some of the cast and crew, trying to get her let go through some motive, and it was a very hard decision of everybody's word, and trying to find out who was telling the honest truth. It was a very tough time for us, and I do regret authorizing the laying off of Gina from Mandalorian Season 3 at the time. After finding out Gina was laid off in such an unprofessional manner, is the why I do regret my actions, and we are working on a remedy for all of that. So, the thing about this is this. Chapek seems to be more sentimental about what happened to Gina nowadays. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's fired, he's not the Disney CEO anymore, he's able to really reveal more about his feelings and his true honest opinions on certain things. And I just think he doesn't care anymore. You know, he's not the CEO, he can say whatever he wants to, and there's that. So, given that Bob Iger's running the show, he's doing whatever John and Dave want to do, it is very likely now that things are going to work in Gina's favor. Again, it's all up to her at this point. It's all Gina's decision. You know, the board over at Disney, Bob Iger, the CEO, they all want Gina back. It's a marketing move. They know it's going to bring Star Wars fans back. And that's why I said it's not really all that genuine in a way, at least on Disney's end, because they're only doing this as a marketing move. But John and Dave genuinely are trying to get her back because they love how she was on set. They love her character. In fact, the model of Cara Dune is actually modeled after Gina Carano's name, believe it or not. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Gina Carano was based off of creating the name Cara Dune. So anyways, we all know that there's a lot of things happening here between Bob Iger, the board, John and Dave, and exactly how this is all going to roll out. We have a lot of things ahead of us. There's a lot of things that Disney has to regulate and really bring to the fans' attention. And we're going to be learning a lot more about this through multiple, events like Celebration and D23, and even some of the upcoming earnings calls that happen quarterly. So keep that in mind as well. So, like I said, guys, I'm very much intrigued to hear what each and every one of you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.